Idolatry destroys societies because it elevates the wrong thing. We're operating under the presupposition that idolatry is the way it is, and idolatry is the problem that it is, because we're putting something in the highest place. So, for example, let's take the Exodus example we talked about earlier on. So, for the Israelites, God was their highest value, the thing that they valued the most. And so when they replaced God with the golden calf, their society went to hell, sexual degeneracy all over the place, all that kind of thing. So I heard this great quote from Tim Dillon, I believe, earlier this week or last week on his podcast, and I thought it was so interesting. I never heard it phrased this way. He said, "You end up where you belong." And I thought that was really fascinating because he's right. You end up where you belong because there's nothing more impactful to you, to anybody else, than the decisions that you end up making. So where you belong depends on what you elevate to your top values, because you make decisions, you make your lifestyle, everything else because of the value system that you adopt. So essentially, if you elevate the wrong things, you'll make decisions based off those wrong things, which will make your life careen off to the side of your life, and it will not end up being good. And so everything is a values equation. Everything is a values problem. Every issue is a values issue, no matter whether it's idolatry or race or Israel or whatever. It is all about the prioritization of your value system, or if you prioritize your values at all, which you should. Obviously, that's what this program exists for. And so the problem is, with idolatry especially, when something that should not be in your value system, when something that is, an inferior value acting like a superior value, it begins to consume the rest of your value system. And so when you see something that you value, something that you hold in high esteem, again, whether it's your wife, your kids, your job, your sex life, whatever it turns out to be, if it consumes the rest of your value system, and if it consumes your life, it is not a value. It is an idol. And you need to work on killing that idol immediately, and probably a lot quicker than you otherwise would. Because you need to take a look at these things that start to really consume your life. This is how addiction happens, by the way. Addiction starts out as, I'm going to take a bong hit, I'm going to, down this whole bottle of whiskey, I'm going to whatever the thing is going to be. And eventually, years down the line, you spent tons of money on it, tons of time on it, you've wrecked your life because of it, and it's consumed all of your values. Your values don't matter because that's the only thing that is inside of your value system that has any weight. So it's not become a value, it's gone from a value, maybe in some scenarios, to an idol in that scenario. And so we need to be very, very careful when it comes to our own value systems and our own idols, just because, again, they're just so tricky to have and to deal with. And so you need to take a look at your value system constantly. This is why observing your values is it's so critical. It's absolutely critical, because if there's an idol there, you need to tear it down. Again, you cannot be nice when it comes to idols. You can't be nice when it comes to idolatry. You need to tear it down, and you need to have no mercy with going forward in terms of how you deal with that idol, because when an idol is present inside of your value system, it denigrates and destroys the rest of your value system. You can't have that happen. And so at a societal level, great societies get to become great societies because of the values they hold. That's how great societies work. So great societies are not built because of, this is where Nazism went wrong, for example. They're not built because of a master race. No one is a master race. We're all equal in the eyes of God. They're not a certain way because of their demographics or their economic system. A country is great because of the values that they hold in the highest place. So this is why Douglas Murray had this interesting point on Joe Rogan once, where he's like, there's a reason why people would prefer to live in some place like America versus some place like Mogadishu. And I have nothing against Mogadishu. I'm sure there's a lot of lovely people there. But the reason why Mogadishu is where Mogadishu is, and the reason why America is where America is, you can take this with any place. You can do this with, Burma, China, pick Antarctica, pick your place of choice. So if the values of that place do not elevate the best of people, the best of societies, then you can't have a great country. You just can't. You can have all the resources in the world, but you're not going to have a great country. You're not going to have a great city. You're not going to have a great community. You're not going to have a great marriage. Doesn't matter how hot your wife is. Sorry. Doesn't matter how hot you are. Sorry. What matters in the marriage is what is valued in the marriage. If you have good values in the marriage will be good. If you have bad values in the marriage will be bad. Plain and simple. Companies, countries, organizations, communities, friend groups, everything works that way. Everything works that way. So when those go away, when values go away, when values are out of the equation, they lose grip on that. Countries, whatever, especially true with societies. So when societies lose sight as to what made them great in the first place, they begin to slide into decadence, they begin to decay, because they lose their identity and who they are. And we're seeing this happen in real time, by the way. It's fascinating. Like, going back to Douglas Murray, and I've had my critiques of Douglas Murray, obviously. But Douglas Murray wrote a great book, I believe in 2017. I'll say 2017. I might be wrong about that. Called The Strange Death of Europe, about the massive Islamic migration into Europe because of the terror wars, because we blew up the Middle East and those people didn't have anywhere to go, so they fled into Europe. Europe opened their borders and said, hey, we'll take all of you, come into Italy, come into Germany, come into London, come into France, come into wherever. And that country has lost its identity because they have capitulated so much to another culture that they have forgot what made their own culture good in the first place. Europe apparently used to be a very, very great place to visit. I don't like going to Europe. And I've been privileged to go over to Europe twice. I don't like it. I don't see what the big deal is. Why? Because Europe is not Europe, at least from what it was described to me. It's not anymore. It's kind of a lackluster. It's very sad when you go over there. Actually, it's kind of very like lackluster, and the people are kind of have like this dejected spirit about them, and it's just not. It's very bizarre. It's very strange. And I'm an American first and foremost. Like, I'm a patriot. I love this country, but there's just a sense of like malaise over Europe right now. And that's clearly because they've lost their values. And therefore, their values have allowed their culture to descend into lesser values. And I'm not saying that Islamic values are lesser values, even though I'm a Christian and I believe that from a theological perspective. But Europe had an identity, and now Europe doesn't have an identity, which is causing a lot of problems, not only with immigration, with economics, with social issues, with housing, whatever you want to pick your poison, government, all that stuff. And so this is very much starting to happen in America too, especially in the last 10 years, like I said, in terms of just the attacks on people like the founders, on the founding documents, on what year the country was founded. It's like it's wild to me that this kind of cultural erasure, I mean, you talk about cultural appropriation. I mean, cultural appropriation in America has been happening really for a very long time at this point. Only it's not in the way that people think, because people are appropriating their version of America onto America. Tucker Carlson said this once, and it really affected me in a very profound way. He said, if you truly love something, you do not seek to change it into a fundamental value. And that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And so I said, okay, then what is the motive of the people that want to burn America down from its current standing? And the motivation is because they hate America. The people that want to fundamentally change America, fundamentally change Europe, fundamentally change China for that matter, or whoever else, they don't like the current state, they hate the current state, and they want to change it. That's why that stuff happens. And so all of this to say, taking it from more of a macro level, focusing on idolatry purely. So the biggest thing that idolatry does is alienate people from the truth. And so you look at all of the extensions of basically, Louise Perry had a phenomenal, I think a phenomenal example of this with her book, The Case Against Sexual Revolution, where all of her chapter titles were essentially a anti-truth about sex, love, relationships, marriage, whatever, versus the truth of marriage. One of those, for example, is that lust is not love. Lust is an idol, love is a value. So, same thing, apply that to everything else. Lust is not love, addiction is not enjoyment, etc. And so, when you idolize lust, you cannot love. When you idolize addiction, you can't enjoy things. And pick your poison with anything, with any idol that you might have in your own life. And we all have one, at least one. And I have multiple, because I'm a bad sinner. I'm not a good person, so I have multiple idols. So the truth is that people who are obsessed with their idols, the people who are addicts, the people who are falling into lustful behavior, etc., they are obsessed with their idols, addicted to their idols, because so many of them were seeking a true thing, which is a good thing. They were seeking love, enjoyment, etc. But Then they made the mistake of getting myopic and making it the only thing. So I am defined, my identity is defined by my sexual taste, by my politics, by my love of food, my lust of food, etc. So what that does is when you focus and you get really myopic on one of your values that you therefore make an idol, it elevates it to the top of your value system and basically inverts the whole thing from top to bottom. And really, at the end of the day, that's how all societies decay. That's how you get dictators. That's how you get authoritarianism, communism, fascism, all of them. Because you blow up your value system. You blow up your value system and you idolize something and you put an idol inside of your value system's place. And so when values are out of order, when you move your values out of order, it leaves an opening for people to exploit them, to take advantage of them, which is how movements get oriented and converted from value-oriented ones to non-value-oriented ones. It becomes a social movement, whatever it's going to be, and it turns into a cult. That's exactly how it happens. So this is why Germany was once, before in Weimar Germany, before the Republic fell, or no, before the kingdom fell apart, before all that kind of stuff really, turned on its head. Germany was known for great art, innovation, science, democracy. And then as soon as Hitler came in and changed everything and idolized, white people and the Aryan race and made that the focal point of his political ideology, that's why Germany fell apart. And the same is true with Soviet Russia. The same is true with, like you see people who idolize dictators and leaders. Once that dictator and leader, or whoever else it's going to be, once they fall away, once that cult of personality goes away because no one lives forever, the movement stops and it decays into a mess. And I think that with idolatry, it's the exact same way. I know with idolatry, it's the exact same way, except from a person perspective, it's a value perspective. And so something to keep in mind. And your values are sacred. And when idols are there, your values are not. So prioritize your values. Don't allow an idol to creep into everything.